I've always loved traveling, diving into the histories and cultures of different places. When I got the chance to visit Germany, I jumped at it. My plan included the popular cities, Berlin, Munich, and Frankfurt. However, one place stood out to me, Rothenburg Horror. Known for its well-preserved medieval buildings, the town also had a darker history that intrigued me. I never imagined my curiosity would lead me into a terrifying experience. Rothenburg Horror, with its cobblestone streets and half-timbered houses, looked like something out of a fairy tale. As I wandered through the town at sunset, I felt a mix of excitement and unease. The town's beauty was clear, but there was an unsettling vibe. I had read about the town's ghost stories and dark past, especially the tale of the Meistertrunk, where a mayor supposedly saved the town by drinking a huge amount of wine. But there were other, less well-known stories that were much darker. I checked into a quaint little inn called the Golden Stag, which was said to be one of the oldest buildings in town. The innkeeper, Herr Muller, was a friendly man in his 60s, with a thick Bavarian accent and lots of local knowledge. After showing me to my room, he lingered for a moment. "Be sure to visit the Crime and Punishment Museum," he said, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's filled with our town's dark history." I thanked him and decided to check out the museum. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The room was dimly lit, with heavy wooden beams across the ceiling and creaky floorboards that seemed to whisper with every gust of wind. I told myself it was just my imagination, heightened by the stories I had read. The next morning, I set out to explore the town. The streets were busy with tourists, but it wasn't hard to find quieter spots where history seemed to weigh heavily. I made my way to the Crime and Punishment Museum, a large building filled with medieval torture devices, old legal documents, and exhibits about the town's dark past. As I wandered through the dimly lit halls, I felt more and more uneasy. It felt like the walls were whispering secrets of pain and suffering. In one of the back rooms, I found an exhibit about the town's witch trials. A chill ran down my spine as I read about the women who had been accused, tortured, and executed. Their faces stared back at me from old sketches, eyes filled with terror and defiance. I was particularly drawn to the story of one woman, Katharina Weiss, who had been accused of witchcraft in 1627. According to the exhibit, she had been brutally tortured before being burned at the stake. Her last words were a curse on the town and its people. I left the museum feeling unsettled, the bright sunlight outside doing little to lift my dark mood. I decided to take a walk along the town wall, hoping that the fresh air and stunning views would clear my mind. As I walked, I noticed a small group of people listening to a tour guide talking about ghosts and hauntings. And it said that Katharina Weiss still roams the streets at night, seeking revenge on those who wronged her, the guide was saying. Many have reported seeing a woman in old-fashioned clothes, her face twisted in anger and pain. I shivered at his words. As the group moved on, I continued my walk, trying to shake off the lingering sense of dread. That evening, I found myself back at the inn, having a glass of wine in the cozy little pub. Herr Muller joined me, and we started talking about the town's history. "It's a beautiful place, but it has its dark corners," he said, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. The witch trials were a particularly grim chapter. Many innocent lives were lost. "Do you believe in the ghost stories?" I asked, half-jokingly. He looked at me seriously for a moment before replying. "There are things in this world that we cannot explain. The past has a way of lingering, especially in a place with as much history as Rothenburg. Some say that the souls of the wronged never truly find peace." That night, I dreamt of Katharina Weiss. In my dream, she stood at the foot of my bed, her eyes burning with a mix of rage and sorrow. She reached out to me, her fingers cold and claw-like, and whispered words I couldn't understand. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. The next few days passed in a blur of sightseeing and sleepless nights. No matter where I went, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the very air in Rothenburg was charged with a dark energy. I confided in Herr Muller, who suggested I visit a local historian, Frau Schneider, who specialized in the town's occult history. Frau Schneider lived in a small, cluttered house at the edge of town. She was a tiny woman with sharp eyes and a quick wit. As I recounted my experiences, she listened intently, nodding occasionally. "It sounds like you have attracted the attention of a restless spirit," she said matter-of-factly. "Katharina Weiss, perhaps. She is one of the most vengeful spirits in our history." "Is there any way to communicate with her? To help her find peace?" I asked, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. Frau Schneider thought for a moment before replying. There is an old ritual, a way to reach out to the spirits. But it is dangerous. You must be certain that you want to go through with it. I nodded, my mind made up. I need to do this. I need to understand. She gave me a list of items to gather and instructed me to meet her at the town cemetery at midnight. As the hour approached, I felt a growing sense of dread, but also a strange excitement. I was about to step into a world I had only read about in books. The cemetery was eerily silent, the moon casting long shadows over the ancient tombstones. Frau Schneider was already there, waiting for me with a bundle of candles and a worn leather book. We set up a circle of candles around a particular grave, and name on the headstone barely legible, Katharina Weiss. "Sit inside the circle and hold this," she instructed, handing me an old amulet. "I will begin the ritual. Whatever happens, do not leave the circle." She began to chant in a low, rhythmic voice, the words foreign and ancient. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath forming in the night air. The shadows seemed to move and twist, and the sense of being watched intensified. Suddenly, the candles flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. "Katharina Weiss," Frau Schneider called out, her voice steady. "We seek to understand your pain. We seek to help you find peace." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft glow appeared above the grave, forming into the shape of a woman. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. She looked at me, and I felt a wave of cold wash over me. You want to help me?" she whispered, her voice echoing as if from a great distance. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling. "Tell us what happened to you." She began to speak, her voice gaining strength. She told us of her life, her unjust accusation, and the horror she endured. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face, and I felt a deep sorrow for her plight. "We believe you," Frau Schneider said gently, "and we will do everything we can to clear your name. But you must let go of your anger. You must find peace." Katharina looked at us for a long moment before nodding slowly. "I will try," she said, her form beginning to fade. "Thank you." As she disappeared, the candles relit themselves, and the air grew warmer. I felt a sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted. Frau Schneider smiled at me, her eyes twinkling with a mix of pride and exhaustion. "You did well," she said. "But remember, the past never truly leaves us. It shapes us, and we must learn from it." I thanked her and made my way back to the inn, feeling a sense of closure. The nights that followed were peaceful, and the oppressive atmosphere that had haunted me seemed to dissipate. Rothenburg ob der Tauber was still a place of beauty and history, but it was no longer a place of fear for me. As I prepared to leave the town, Herr Muller approached me with a smile. "I hear you had quite the adventure," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Yes, it was. Unforgettable," I replied, smiling back. "Safe travels, Alex. And remember, the past is always with us, but it does not have to define us." I nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude for the experiences I had had. Rothenburg had shown me that history, with all its darkness and light, was an integral part of who we are. And sometimes, confronting that darkness was the only way to truly understand ourselves. As the train pulled away from the station, I looked back at the town one last time. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the medieval walls. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and closure. My journey in Rothenburg had come to an end, but the memories and lessons would stay with me forever. The whispers of the past had been silenced, and the shadows had been lifted. Rothenburg ob der Tauber, with its beauty and its darkness, would always hold a special place in my heart. Also, in the end, just don't forget, it wasn't just a puppy, so you better click that subscribe button.